And so he was a successful attorney, but he could be in any kind of business. He also had a medical background. It was a two-lawyer law firm. And for whatever happened, the firm was sued. And while both individuals or partners in the firm were part of the suit, really he was a signature on whatever documents were involved. And so he is responsible for that. But when they were sued and both were indicted, the partner probably was more savvy than this individual. And this guy's very nice, a bit naive. And the partner spoke up first and wound up getting off with um, the least amount of damage. And this other person listened to the attorney. And as he related it to me, one of the first things he had said, which sent the hairs up my back, was that his lawyer told him not to worry. And I just shook my head, because if your lawyers ever tell you not to worry, worry. Because if you're indicted and it's federal, or if it's not federal, but you should always be concerned. This is nothing to play around with, a federal indictment. And so he went into his pre-sentence interview. The lawyer just felt it. We said it was going to be a no-brainer. I know the judge. This is not a big deal. And at the end of the day, he had to go to federal prison. He lost his law license. He wasn't prepared for the interview. He didn't know what a narrative was. He didn't know what a release plan was. He didn't know that at sentencing that the judge was going to ask him if he had anything to say. But when he was at sentencing, he tried to get the attorney, can we at least have witnesses that can speak on my behalf? Because I have character witnesses here. And the judge wouldn't allow it. All the judge knew about this person was in the indictment. And from the indictment, he appeared as America's Most Wanted, a crook. And the judge would not allow any character reference letters in. And he had many. But again, the judge said, he was a crook. And so it was a shame, because he had a medical background. He had volunteered and served on nonprofit boards throughout his life. He had done a tremendous amount of work in the community, and all of it was for naught because the attorney told him not to worry. But and both of us agreed you can't go around life, spend your time looking backwards. You just can't. At the time, though, and which is what I try and convey today to individuals, is that you need to take the time, and it will take time, to write your story, your autobiography. It's called your narrative, because right now the Department of Justice has your indictment, and that's their narrative of you. And so you need to write your story. And that would have included for him everything that he had done over the years. And it would have changed the perception that the judge had of him, and possibly, not definitely, but possibly, it would have had in the pre-sentence report the narrative, which would have been his story of himself. And he would be able to have pled guilty, but he would have been guilty of not doing the due diligence to whatever that contract signature stated, and not have been able to have either stopped it or have ensured that everything in the written four corners of the document happened. And that was what he was guilty of. And that could have been spelled out. He could have then attached into the pre-sentence report at the interview several of the character reference letters from the nonprofit boards, letters from the community, his history in the community throughout his life. But none of that happened, because his attorney had told him not to worry about it, that he knew the judge, he knew the case, and how wrong that attorney was. So I do not want all of you to have that result. So I hope you take this to heart, because it's very important, no matter what your lawyer tells you, that you go into the pre-sentence interview knowing that 1 to 2 weeks before the interview, you have provided to the probation officer all of copies of everything that your lawyer has spoken with the probation officer that they needed, all your financials, your medical records, everything, as well as your narrative, your reentry plan, which will be small because, it's early in the process that will grow while you're inside, your allocution, and you may want to take a 5x8 card and make some notes on it to bring with you into the sentencing hearing, as well as I mentioned already, character reference letters, and have all of that included into the provided to the probation officer before the interview several weeks, so that during the interview, the officer can take the time to get to meet you personally, ask any questions that he or she may have. And they may come away from the interview also knowing you as a different person than the indictment, because the probation officer does pass off recommendations to the judge. And so I hope you found this helpful. Thank you very much for taking your time to listen to this today. And I'm grateful for that time. Have a good day and stay safe.